Why did I marry a woman who took off her wedding ring every single Tuesday night? It was a cold November evening in Chicago, the wind howling off Lake Michigan and rattling the windows of our Lincoln Park apartment. I was staring at the half-empty bottle of whiskey on our granite countertop, the amber liquid catching the dim light, when the front door finally clicked open. She walked in, her cheeks flushed from the cold, a smile on her face that didn't quite reach her eyes. She always had that same story, that her book club ran late. But her hair smelled like a man's cologne, a scent I knew wasn't mine. And there was a faint red mark on her neck she'd tried to cover with a scarf. The lie hung in the air between us, thick and suffocating. If you genuinely enjoy our stories, please subscribe to the channel, tell us where you're from, what time it is right now. It's always fascinating to know how far our story flows. My name is Ethan, and for 10 years, Sarah was my entire world. We met at DePaul University, two kids with big dreams, holding hands as we walked along the lakefront. I built a successful software company from the ground up, all for her, for us. I gave her everything. The beautiful apartment overlooking the city, the luxury car, a life free from financial worry so she could pursue her passion for art curation. Our friends saw us as the perfect couple. But perfection is a fragile illusion. The cracks started small. A new password-protected phone she was always guarding. Late-night texts she claimed were from her sister. But it was the Tuesday nights that broke me. Every Tuesday, like clockwork, she had her book club. I never questioned it. Why would I? But one night I found a receipt in her coat pocket. Dinner for two at a fancy Italian place on Rush Street, time-stamped at 9 p.m. on a Tuesday. Our book club didn't serve $500 truffle pasta. That night I didn't sleep. I felt a cold dread creeping into my bones. The next Tuesday, I told her I was going on a business trip. Instead, I parked my car down the street from our apartment. I watched her leave, dressed to kill in a dress I'd never seen before. She got into a rideshare, and I followed at a distance. My heart hammered against my ribs as her car pulled up outside a sleek, modern condo building in the Gold Coast. A man was waiting for her at the entrance. He was tall, handsome in that generic, smug way, wearing a perfectly tailored suit. Kissed her. A deep, passionate kiss that made my stomach turn. And right before they went inside, I saw it. She slipped her wedding ring off her finger and dropped it into her purse. That was the moment my world shattered. I drove home in a daze, the city lights blurring through my tears. I felt like a fool, a complete and utter joke. Every memory we had, every I love you was now tainted. The next morning she came home just before dawn, humming to herself. She slipped the ring back on her finger and kissed me on the cheek, telling me how much she'd missed me. The hypocrisy was nauseating. I played along, the perfect, clueless husband. The love I had for her was replaced by a cold, calculating resolve. And for the next 2 months, I became a ghost in my own life. I was a detective, an actor, a man on a mission. I hired a private investigator, a discreet professional who documented everything. The photos were gut-wrenching. Sarah and him, laughing, holding hands, kissing in public. Him, I found out, was Mark Renshaw, a high-flying real estate developer with a reputation for being ruthless in business and his personal life. He was married too. They were both playing a dangerous game, and they felt untouchable. Sarah became bolder, colder. She'd pick fights over nothing, making me feel like I was the problem. She'd say I was suffocating her, that I was too needy. She was building her exit strategy, laying the groundwork to paint me as the villain when she finally decided to leave. I let her. I absorbed the insults, the cold shoulders, the blatant lies. I cried alone in my car during my lunch breaks, punching the steering wheel until my knuckles were raw. But every tear fueled my anger, hardening my resolve. My breakdown was private. My revenge would be public. I started moving our assets, quietly, legally. With the help of my lawyer, I set up a series of trusts. I liquidated stocks, transferred funds, and protected the company I had built with my own sweat and blood. Sarah had signed a prenuptial agreement when we got married, a document she'd laughed off at the time. She never thought I'd enforce it. She underestimated me. She saw a gentle, loving husband, not the strategic thinker who built a tech empire from nothing. The pie gave me the final piece of the puzzle. Mark Renshaw was about to close the biggest deal of his career. Massive downtown development project partially funded by a very conservative, family-oriented investment group. His own wife, it turned out, came from a powerful old money family in Chicago who were key investors. They had no idea their golden boy son-in-law was a philanderer. The stage was set. The day I chose for my final act was our 11th wedding anniversary. A Tuesday, of course. I told Sarah I had a surprise for her. I booked a private room at that same expensive restaurant on Rush Street. I invited all our closest friends, our family, and, with a bit of creative social engineering, I made sure Mark Renshaw's wife, Clara, and her influential father were also invited under the pretense of a charity benefactor dinner. They thought they were meeting with a potential major donor, who was, of course, me, using a different name. Sarah arrived looking radiant, a vision in white. She kissed me, telling me how much she loved me. The lie was so practiced, so effortless. Our friends toasted to us, to our perfect marriage. I stood up to make a speech. I talked about our 10 years together, the ups and downs, the love and the memories. Sarah beamed, holding my hand. Then, my tone shifted. A marriage is built on trust and honesty, I said, my voice steady and cold. But what happens when that trust is broken? What happens when one person builds their happiness on the ruins of another's heart? A confused murmur went through the room. Sarah's smile faltered. I looked directly at her. What happens when a wife tells her husband she's at a book club every Tuesday night, but she's really sleeping with another man? The room went silent. You could hear a pin drop. Sarah's face went white as a sheet. I pulled a small projector remote from my pocket. I believe in showing, not just telling, I said, and I clicked the button. The wall behind me lit up. First image was a high-resolution photo of Sarah and Mark kissing passionately outside his condo. Gasps echoed through the room. I clicked again. Okay, picture of them at a cafe, her hand on his thigh. Click. Them checking into a hotel. Click. A close-up of her hand, her wedding ring clearly absent. I provided a calm, factual narration for each photo, complete with dates and times. Sarah started shaking, muttering, "No, no, no." Her parents looked horrified. My friends stared at me, then at her, their faces a mixture of shock and pity. Then, I turned my attention to Mark's wife, Clara. "Clara," I said softly, "I'm so sorry you had to find out this way. But your husband has been sleeping with my wife for over 6 months. Clara stared at the screen, then at Mark, who looked like he'd seen a ghost. Her father, a man who radiated power, stood up, his face like thunder. He looked at Mark with pure contempt, before guiding his devastated daughter out of the room. I knew Mark's career and his marriage were over in that instant. I turned back to Sarah. She was sobbing now, her perfect facade completely shattered. "The locks on the apartment have been changed," I said, my voice devoid of all emotion. "Your belongings are in storage. The account for your credit cards has been closed. My lawyer served you with divorce papers an hour ago. Per our prenuptial agreement, you will be leaving this marriage with exactly what you brought into it, nothing." I placed my wedding ring on the table. "Happy anniversary," I said. Then I walked out of the restaurant, leaving her to face the wreckage she had created. I didn't look back. The cold Chicago air hit my face, and for the first time in months I felt like I could breathe again. The pain was still there, a dull ache deep in my chest, but it was overshadowed by a chilling sense of peace. Justice had been served. I never saw her again, but I heard the stories. She was a social pariah. Her family was ashamed. Her friends abandoned her. No money and no skills. She disappeared into obscurity. Sometimes on a cold Tuesday night when the wind howls off the lake, I think of her. I don't feel anger anymore, or even sadness. I just feel nothing. The love I thought was my life's masterpiece was just a cheap forgery. The end.